In the unforgiving Wild West, one man's simple act of mercy would ignite a journey of hope, courage, and survival that no one saw coming. The desert sun rose in a blaze of gold and crimson, casting jagged shadows across the cracked earth as Jonah Blackwell trudged through the unrelenting heat, boots sinking into sand that radiated fire, sweat running in rivulets down his face, the wind carrying whispers of past tragedies and distant, desperate cries that reminded him of all he had lost. His brother stolen by ruthless men, his family torn apart by greed and bloodshed, the ranch of his youth reduced to ashes and memories. And yet he pressed forward, driven by a stubborn code of honor and an unshakable belief that survival was meaningless without purpose. And in the shimmering heat haze ahead, a flicker of movement caught his eye. A small figure crouched behind jagged rocks, shivering, emaciated, lips cracked, eyes wide with fear. And Jonah instinctively reached for his revolver, only to pause, sensing that this fragile human being was not a threat but a soul in need. And he tipped his canteen carefully, letting water flow over her trembling lips, her small hands reaching for the life-saving liquid. Her eyes reflecting shock, disbelief, and, slowly, a fragile trust. And he realized then that she was Apache, her necklace glinting silver in the sun, a reminder of cultures, tribes, and histories beyond his grief, a connection to a world that was larger than his own pain. And as she drank, a spark of responsibility ignited within him, a purpose that went beyond survival, that demanded protection, teaching, and courage. And he guided her through the harsh desert, showing her how to find hidden springs beneath layers of sand, to read the clouds and wind for signs of rain or danger, to listen to the land for the whispers of predators and men with ill intent. And as days passed, he began sharing stories of his past. His brother, taken too soon in a senseless skirmish with a wandering gang. His parents, who had instilled in him a code of fairness and mercy, lessons that seemed small until they became weapons of wisdom in a world without law. And the girl, whom he named Ayanna, listened intently, her laughter slowly threading through the quiet nights under the stars, her eyes brightening with wonder as he taught her how to move silently, track footprints, understand the cries of coyotes and the distant drum of horse hooves. And along the way, they encountered other travelers. Silas, a grizzled ex-lawman with eyes like flint who had hunted Hale's gang across 3 counties, offering guidance, sharpshooting skills, and a moral compass hardened by loss. Mara, a widow whose ranch had been torched, who taught Ayanna the precision of a rifle and showed Jonah that even the most fragile-seeming lives could carry extraordinary resilience. And a wandering trader named Ezekiel, whose cart of supplies and tales of towns burned and families displaced added context to the lawlessness that permeated the plains, showing both the greed and courage that defined the West. And Jonah absorbed each lesson, weaving strategy and survival, caution and mercy into a tapestry of preparation for the inevitable confrontation that loomed ahead, while teaching Ayanna to trust her instincts, to remain calm under pressure, to see opportunity in shadow and movement, to measure fear but never let it govern action. And as the nights stretched long, cold, and silent, with only the stars and the whispering wind as witnesses, he reflected on the fragility of life, the cruel twist of fate that stole loved ones, and the rare, unrepeatable moments of hope that could change everything. And their journey led them to small towns and homesteads, some abandoned, some occupied by wary but grateful townsfolk, each encounter enriching their understanding of justice, betrayal, and courage. And Jonah realized that these people, who stared warily at strangers yet extended trust in the smallest ways, represented the flickering light of humanity in a land defined by violence. And every step through the canyons and plains was a lesson. Reading the subtle scuff of a boot in the sand, noting the glint of sunlight off metal, gauging the mood of a horse or the twitch of a man's hand, every sign a warning or an opportunity. And when they finally came upon a hidden encampment of Hale's men, the tension coiled like a spring. Jonah signaling allies, Silas, Mara, Ezekiel, and a handful of ranchers whose livestock had been stolen, to positions of precision, each one ready to strike with deadly accuracy. And the attack, when it came, exploded like lightning across the canyon. Gunfire shattered the night. Dust and smoke mingled with the acrid tang of gunpowder. Men shouted, horses reared, chaos rippling through the tight space. Jonah moving like a shadow, protecting Ayanna, coordinating his allies, striking decisively. While she crouched low, steady despite the fear, her small hands gripping the pistol he had entrusted to her. Lessons learned under duress now coming to life in action. And as the battle raged, Jonah confronted Crawford Hale himself, a towering brute with eyes dark as coal, his rifle aimed with deadly precision. And their confrontation became a deadly dance of will, instinct, and morality, each second pregnant with danger. Until Jonah, drawing on every skill the desert had taught him, every instinct honed by years of survival, disarmed Hale, forcing him to the ground, the rifle skittering across rocks, and the remaining men fled, leaving only the echo of gunfire and the heavy breathing of survivors. And Jonah knelt beside Ayanna, ensuring she was unharmed, her small hand clutching his, and realized then that the single act of giving water in the desert had set off a chain of events that would forever change both their lives and the lives of countless others, proving that courage, mercy, and resilience could flourish even in the harshest lands. And in the days that followed, Jonah, Ayanna, and their allies helped rebuild towns, repair fences, tend wounded animals, deliver food and water to travelers, teach survival skills to those willing to learn, and Ayanna herself began to blossom, her laughter threading through the streets like sunlight through dust, a beacon of hope. While Jonah felt a quiet pride, a rare serenity, a sense of purpose that went beyond personal loss to something far larger. And as they prepared to ride toward the distant mountains where Hale's remaining men might regroup, Jonah looked across the endless horizon, the wind carrying the scent of sage and promise, and knew that their story had only begun. That the Wild West, brutal and merciless, could also be a place of small miracles, quiet courage, and enduring hope. And that together, he and Ayanna had become not only survivors, but catalysts for change in a land that desperately needed both. And the endless plains stretched before them, shimmering with danger and possibility, the sun climbing higher, painting the world in gold and fire. And Jonah, heart steady, hand gripping the reins, whispered silently to the girl beside him that no matter what came, they would face it together, that mercy, courage, and love would be their guide. And the saga of the rancher and the coal Apache girl would ripple across the Wild West, carried in stories, whispers, and legends for generations to come. A testament to the enduring human spirit, the power of choice, and the quiet, unstoppable force of hope that could flourish even amidst dust, blood, and chaos. The first light of dawn crept over the jagged ridges of the Wild West, casting long, trembling shadows across the plains, As Jonah Blackwell and Ayanna rode cautiously toward the distant settlement they hoped could offer refuge, their horses' hooves kicking up clouds of dust that clung to their skin, a tangible reminder that danger lurked everywhere, in every whisper of wind and shifting of the sand. And Jonah's mind raced, not only with the memory of Hale's men scattered and wounded, but also with the knowledge that in a lawless land like this, survival was only the beginning. For there were opportunists and predators who would exploit the slightest weakness. And as they descended into a narrow canyon, they spotted signs of movement: broken branches, faint footprints, the glimmer of a rifle barrel catching the sun. And Jonah instinctively crouched low, signaling Ayanna to do the same, teaching her once more that reading the land, observing without being seen, and predicting human behavior was as crucial as skill with a weapon. And while they waited in tense silence, a figure emerged from behind a ridge. A young man with a wild, haunted look, rifle in hand, whose name was Elias, a runaway from a neighboring county who had witnessed Hale's cruelty firsthand, his story weaving another thread of despair and survival into the fabric of Jonah and Ayanna's journey. And Jonah offered him water and guidance, teaching him the same principles of patience, observation, and stealth, forging another ally whose courage would soon be tested. And as the day wore on, the trio encountered Mara and Silas again, their combined knowledge of the terrain, enemy tactics, and human behavior creating a network of strategy that turned their small group into a formidable force. While Ayanna's confidence blossomed, her small hands steadying the pistol, her eyes sharp, absorbing lessons of tracking, reading danger, and the delicate balance between mercy and decisiveness. And together, they navigated treacherous terrain, avoiding patrols, loose bandits, and natural hazards like hidden ravines and sudden flash floods. While Jonah shared more of his past, memories of a brother's laughter cut short by betrayal, lessons learned from his parents, and the pain of watching friends fall to greed and violence. All of which became a guide for the younger members of their growing group, teaching them resilience, hope, and courage. And as they reached a small, dusty town on the edge of the plains, Jonah observed wary faces peering from shuttered windows, men gripping rifles beneath coats, and children hiding behind their mothers, the remnants of a community ground down by fear and oppression. And he knew that their mission had shifted from survival, protection, from vengeance to inspiring courage in others. And over the following days, the group helped repair fences, tend to wounded livestock, deliver supplies to struggling families, and train townsfolk in the basics of defense and survival, while also gathering intelligence on Hale's remaining men. Each conversation, each small act of trust weaving a web that connected their group to a larger purpose. And Ayanna thrived in this environment, her bravery shining as she guided younger children in lessons Jonah had taught her, her laughter a melody of hope that contrasted with the harshness of the West. While Jonah coordinated efforts, balancing strategy, vigilance, and the constant threat of ambush. And they learned of a hidden encampment deep in the canyon where Hale's scattered men had regrouped under a new, ruthless lieutenant named Vance, a cruel strategist whose cunning rivaled Hale's. And Jonah meticulously planned an approach emphasizing timing, stealth, and the minimization of risk, teaching each member of the group the delicate art of coordination and anticipation. While Ayanna, crouched beside him, absorbed every detail, her instincts now finely tuned, ready for the inevitable confrontation. And the night before the ambush, as stars scattered across the inky sky like countless watchful eyes, Jonah reflected on the journey. The water that had saved Ayanna, the bonds forged with Silas, Mara, and Elias, the resilience of townsfolk, the victories, small and large, the terror faced and overcome. And he felt a quiet pride, tempered by awareness that the coming battle would demand everything: courage, skill, and heart. And when they finally descended into the canyon at first light, the tension was almost tangible. The enemy camp sprawled below, men laughing, horses tethered carelessly, unaware that a meticulously coordinated force now moved silently through the rocky ridges. And Jonah's signal set the ambush in motion. Gunfire erupted like thunder, dust and smoke swirling, men shouting, horses rearing in panic, chaos rippling across the canyon as each member executed their role with lethal precision. Jonah, moving like a phantom, protecting Ayanna, coordinating allies, disarming foes, striking with calculated efficiency. While the girl, steady despite her youth, acted with courage beyond her years, guiding Elias, taking cover, and providing distraction when needed. And the battle became a symphony of chaos and control, strategy and instinct. Until Jonah confronted Vance, the lieutenant, a cunning and brutal man whose rifle glinted with deadly promise. And their confrontation was a tense, almost cinematic duel of wits, strength, and moral determination. Every heartbeat stretching into eternity, the canyon echoing with shouts and gunfire, until Jonah, drawing on every skill, every lesson, every moment of preparation, disarmed Vance, forcing him to surrender, while the remaining gang scattered, leaving the canyon in a fragile, echoing silence broken only by the labored breaths of survivors, the soft whinny of horses, and the quiet acknowledgement that mercy and courage had prevailed. And in the days that followed, Jonah, Ayanna, and their allies worked to rebuild the community, restore safety, train townsfolk in defense and survival, while also tending to emotional wounds, telling stories of heroism, teaching resilience, and creating a small network of hope across the plains. And Ayanna, now confident and courageous, became a symbol to the children and townsfolk alike, her laughter threading through streets that had long been silent, a melody of survival and hope. While Jonah reflected on the journey, the lessons learned, the bonds forged, and the realization that in a land defined by lawlessness, the true measure of a person was not in strength alone, but in the ability to protect, inspire, and show mercy even amidst chaos. And as the sun set, painting the canyon in blood-orange hues, he knew that their story, built on courage, mercy, and careful strategy, would resonate across the plains. A tale of hope in a brutal world, a testament to the human spirit's resilience, and a preparation for the even greater trials that awaited in the chapters yet to come. For the Wild West would never relent, but neither would those brave enough to fight with heart. And as night fell over the canyon, the wind carrying whispers of their triumph and the scent of sage, Jonah held Ayanna's hand, feeling the unspoken bond that had grown stronger with every challenge, every battle, every act of courage. Knowing that together, they could face anything the frontier threw at them. And that their story, woven from mercy, bravery, and hope, would become a legend that inspired not just survival, but the enduring strength of humanity in the harshest of landscapes. The first light of dawn barely touched the jagged horizon as Jonah Blackwell and Ayanna rode through the vast expanse of the frontier, the wind carrying dust, sage, and the faint tang of danger as every step forward reminded them that the Wild West had no mercy. And while their previous victories had bolstered courage and hope, the scattered remnants of Hale's gang had regrouped, joined by opportunistic outlaws drawn by whispers of revenge and the promise of easy plunder. And Jonah's mind raced with strategies, contingencies, and the lessons of countless skirmishes. Every movement of the horses, every shift in the wind, every distant clatter of rocks a potential sign of ambush. While Ayana, now skilled, attentive, and fearless beyond her years, scanned the horizon, her eyes sharp, her instincts finely tuned, recalling the countless lessons he had taught her. How to read tracks in sand, how to anticipate danger before it arrived, how to turn fear into decisive action. And as they approached the narrow pass known as Widow's Hollow, Jonah signaled the allies who had become their extended family. Silas, Mara, Elias, and even wandering townsfolk who had learned the principles of vigilance and defense, each positioned strategically along ridges, behind rocks, and among sparse vegetation, creating a network of defense and calculated offense. While the canyon below shimmered with movement, the enemy unaware of the web closing around them, the smell of gunpowder, leather, and dust hanging in the air like a prelude to the storm about to erupt. And Jonah's heart thumped with a mixture of fear, anticipation, and fierce determination. For he knew that this confrontation would not only decide their survival, but the fate of communities across the plains. And as he crouched behind a boulder, his eyes locking on the enemy lieutenant, a cruel man named Vance, who had risen from Hale's shadow, the tension coiled in every fiber of his being, every muscle tensed for action. While Ayana crouched beside him, her small hand gripping the pistol he had entrusted to her, her face illuminated by the rising sun, reflecting courage born of hardship, trauma, and resilience. And Jonah thought of all they had endured: the desert, the relentless pursuit, the loss of friends, the building of trust, the countless nights under star-strewn skies sharing stories of survival, hope, and love, and realized that every trial had prepared them for this, had forged a team bound not only by skill but by loyalty, empathy, and an unbreakable resolve. And as the moment approached, the first shot rang out, shattering silence like a thunderclap, dust and smoke rising in a chaotic symphony. Men shouting, horses rearing, the ground trembling beneath the stampede. Jonah moving like a shadow, coordinating allies, taking calculated risks, disarming threats with precision while shielding Ayana. Mara cutting off flankers with deadly accuracy, Silas providing covering fire, and Elias acting as a scout and messenger. Their combined efforts a fluid dance of strategy, instinct, and courage. And the enemy, confident at first, quickly realized that the hunters had become the hunted, panic spreading through their ranks, the leader Vance cursing and barking orders, desperate to maintain control. While Jonah's mind calculated every possibility, anticipating every move, drawing upon all he had learned in the desert, on the plains, and in every confrontation since that fateful day he had offered water to a dying girl. And in the heart of the chaos, Jonah confronted Vance directly, their eyes locking in a silent battle of wills, rifles raised, hearts pounding. A duel where strength, courage, and cunning determined survival. And the confrontation stretched taut, each second a razor edge, the canyon echoing with gunfire, shouts, and the cries of men undone by their own greed and overconfidence. And finally, Jonah, drawing on instinct, strategy, and desperation, disarmed Vance with a maneuver honed through countless lessons, forcing him to the ground, rifle skittering across the rocks, leaving the remaining gang scattered and broken, the echo of their defeat hanging over the canyon like the stillness after a storm. And as Jonah knelt beside Ayana, ensuring she was unharmed, her small hand clutching his, eyes wide with relief, he felt the weight of every choice, every moment of courage, and realized that their journey had become something far larger than survival. It was a testament to hope, mercy, and the human spirit. For the lives saved, the community strengthened, and the bonds forged in the crucible of danger would ripple across the Wild West, inspiring those who had long forgotten what courage and compassion looked like. And in the days that followed, Jonah, Ayanna, and their allies helped rebuild towns, fortify homesteads, tend to wounded animals, train the next generation in survival and vigilance, and share stories of heroism that carried lessons as vital as water in the desert. And Ayanna, now fully confident, fearless, and capable, became a symbol of hope, guiding children, assisting townsfolk, and embodying the resilience that Jonah had seen in her from the moment he had given her a drink of water in the unforgiving desert. And as they worked, the group grew. Stories of their courage attracting allies, former lawmen, ranchers, and wanderers, inspired to stand for justice, creating a network of protection across the plains. A living reminder that even in lawless lands, bravery, compassion, and teamwork could prevail. And Jonah reflected on the journey, from a lone act of mercy to desert survival, to building a family of allies, to orchestrating ambushes and protecting the innocent. Realizing that heroism was not measured by gunfire or violence alone, but by the strength to protect, teach, inspire, and endure. And as the sun set, painting the canyon walls in fire and shadow, Jonah and Ayanna rode together, the plains stretching endlessly before them, wind carrying dust and whispers of their legend. And he knew that while the Wild West would always test courage and mercy, they had proven that hope, resilience, and the quiet power of human connection could triumph, leaving a legacy that would echo through canyons, towns, and generations. A story of survival, bravery, and enduring hope that began with a single act of mercy and culminated in the shaping of a frontier where compassion and courage could flourish even amidst the chaos, danger, and relentless trials of the Wild West. And as night fell, stars scattering like diamonds across the sky, Jonah held Ayanna's hand, feeling the unspoken bond that had been forged in sand, fire, and blood. A bond that promised that whatever storms or dangers came, they would face them together. And the legend of the rancher and the Apache girl would endure forever, carried on the winds of the plains, whispered in the tales of townsfolk, and etched into the memory of a land that would never forget the courage, mercy, and hope that had survived amidst the harshest frontier, proving that even in a world defined by lawlessness and violence, humanity, compassion, and bravery could prevail, leaving a legacy of inspiration, love, and resilience that would shape the future of the Wild West for generations to come. The dawn broke over the endless plains like molten gold spilling over jagged horizons, and Jonah Blackwell adjusted his hat, scanning the horizon with a practiced eye, aware that while Hale's gang had been scattered and Vance defeated, the frontier was never truly safe, and whispers of bandits, corrupt sheriffs, and ruthless mercenaries drifted across the towns they had rebuilt, carrying rumors of a new adversary, a shadowy figure known only as Blackthorn, whose reputation for cunning, cruelty, and unpredictability rivaled the worst tales Jonah had heard in his years on the plains. And alongside him, Ayanna rode with a confidence born of countless trials, her posture steady, eyes sharp, fingers brushing the reins as memories of deserts, ambushes, and narrow escapes sharpened her instincts. And as they approached the outskirts of a settlement under Blackthorn's rumored influence, they noticed the signs: broken fences, livestock missing, terrified townsfolk peeking from shuttered windows, and a palpable tension in the air that prickled their skin like static before a storm. And Jonah signaled to Mara, Silas, and Elias to spread out, their coordinated approach now a well-oiled strategy, each member aware that their survival and the protection of innocence depended on precision, vigilance, and unshakable courage. And the group began gathering intelligence, talking to the townspeople in whispers, piecing together sightings of Blackthorn's men, their movements, habits, and methods. And in doing so, they discovered not just the threat of violence, but also the toll on the hearts of the people, the fear that paralyzed them, the hopelessness that had taken root in homes and hearts. And Jonah realized that to truly fight, they could not just confront the enemy. They had to inspire hope, rekindle courage, and show the townsfolk that even in the darkest hour, bravery, unity, and mercy could prevail. And over the following days, he and Ayanna led training, teaching men, women, and children to defend themselves, scout, and read the land, while simultaneously gathering allies from nearby settlements, former lawmen, ranchers, and wanderers who had heard the tales of their courage, forming a network of resistance that stretched across the plains like a living web of hope. And Ayanna, now fully skilled, fearless, and commanding respect, guided younger fighters, organized supply runs, and executed reconnaissance missions with uncanny precision, her presence a beacon to those who had long forgotten what it meant to fight for survival. And as they prepared for the inevitable confrontation with Blackthorn, Jonah reflected on how far they had come. From the desert, where he had offered water to a dying girl, to ambushes in Widow's Hollow, to rebuilding towns, and now to leading a movement. And he felt the weight of responsibility, knowing that any mistake could cost lives. And as night fell, casting shadows across the plains, they observed the enemy's encampment. Tents strewn across a rocky plateau, men patrolling in pairs, guards stationed at key points. And Jonah orchestrated a plan, teaching timing, coordination, and patience, while Ayanna and Elias mapped escape routes. Mara prepared distractions, and Silas took up vantage points with rifles. Each movement calculated, precise, deadly, and yet tempered with the knowledge that mercy must guide action, that the goal was not just victory, but protection. And when the attack began at dawn, chaos erupted like a violent storm. Gunfire cracked, horses panicked, men shouted, dust and smoke swirled, the canyon echoing with the clash of wills and the desperate fight for survival. And Jonah moved through the fray like a shadow, protecting Ayanna, coordinating allies, neutralizing threats with deadly accuracy, while she, composed despite her youth, executed maneuvers, guided townsfolk, and rallied the frightened. Her courage radiant and contagious, turning terror into determination. And amid the battle, Jonah confronted Blackthorn himself, a man cloaked in menace and cunning, his eyes cold, every motion calculated. And their confrontation was a tense, cinematic duel, bullets flying, rifles clashing, and strategy tested to its limits. Until Jonah, drawing on every skill, every lesson, every ounce of courage, outmaneuvered Blackthorn, disarming him and forcing surrender, the remaining men scattering like leaves in a gale, leaving the plains in an eerie, victorious silence, broken only by the heavy breathing of the survivors, the soft whinny of horses, and the realization that mercy, bravery, and unity had triumphed. And in the days that followed, Jonah, Ayanna, and their allies helped repair devastated settlements, rebuild fences, care for wounded, restore confidence, and train new defenders, weaving a network of strength and hope that ensured that communities could protect themselves. While Ayanna continued to shine as a leader and symbol of resilience, guiding children, supporting townsfolk, and inspiring courage in every heart. And Jonah reflected on the journey, on how a single act of mercy, a drop of water in a desert, had ignited a chain of events that changed countless lives, creating legends, inspiring hope, and teaching that even in a harsh, lawless land, humanity, courage, and compassion could flourish. And as the sun set behind distant mesas, painting the plains in fire orange and violet, Jonah and Ayanna rode together, the wind carrying dust, sage, and the echoes of their triumph. And he realized that while the frontier would never stop testing them, they had proven that with courage, wisdom, and mercy, they could protect, inspire, and endure, leaving a legacy that would ripple across the Wild West, a story of hope, bravery, and unbreakable bonds that would outlast the harshest trials, ensuring that the legend of the rancher and the Apache girl, now a symbol of survival, justice, and resilience, would endure forever across the endless plains, whispering in the wind, etched in memory, and inspiring generations yet to come. The frontier was harsh, unforgiving, and relentless. But Jonah and Ayanna had proven that courage, mercy, and hope could endure even in the bleakest corners of the Wild West. They rode together across the endless plains, their silhouettes etched against the fiery horizon, a symbol of resilience for all who had lost faith, their deeds inspiring those around them, sparking courage in hearts long silenced. And as the wind whispered through the canyons, it carried the truth of their journey. Legends were not born, they were forged in bravery and compassion. Fear could be overcome, and in the unforgiving wilderness, hope would always find a way.